Group of foreigners step off a bus in a quiet town. You can go and grab yourself a coffee for this one. Close your eyes. We're reimagining international cooperation. So these foreigners step off a bus. They're dressed differently, speak another language, carry notebooks, iPads, all that stuff. They're welcomed into a local building, maybe a school, where community representatives, counsellors, or just loud people describe the problems they face. Struggling economy, struggling education system, rising mental health crisis, food banks running on empty. The visitors listen carefully, ask thoughtful questions, and eventually the group leader offers solidarity and says how they'll help. It's a familiar scene in many so-called developing countries as experts arrive to help plan interventions with local communities. But what if this wasn't in the developing world at all? What if the community being visited is in Manchester or Frankfurt or Mississippi, and the visitors are from the global south, bringing their expertise, their culture, their solutions? For decades, versions of this encounter have played out across Africa, Asia and Latin America, and not just in community development, academia, businesses, governments, cities. And to their credit, international development practitioners today are far more reflective than in the past. They rarely speak of charity anymore, preferring the language of partnership. They listen more, impose less. And yet, for all the shifts in tone and terminology, one stubborn paradigm remains: that the global north holds the tools, resources and answers, while the global south remains the subject of intervention. But maybe it's time to imagine development differently, not as a one-way street, but as a circular path of mutual learning, shared contribution and common benefit. And that is what we've written about here. Circular cooperation, new paradigms for international partnerships in the 21st century. And this is the Spanish executive summary. We'll have the English one out, actually taking it to Seville for those of you that will be at the FFD meeting in a couple of weeks' time. The circular cooperation model is one in which knowledge, solidarity and support move in all directions, not from developed to developing, but from all countries to all countries. Why do we call it circular cooperation? Well, it builds on a set of spatial analogies that have been used in international cooperation for some time. I don't know if you can see it in here, actually, you might be able to. You've got vertical cooperation, generally referring to north-south cooperation, top-down, traditional aid, from wealthier to poorer. Then there's horizontal cooperation, often associated with south-south cooperation, which is collaboration between countries at similar levels of development or income. You could also consider north-north cooperation to be horizontal. In the last couple of decades, a concept called triangular cooperation has emerged. And this plays with the earlier models and attempts to break out of the binary structures. And you've got a northern country acting as a kind of financier. A middle-income country plays an intermediary, or they call it a pivotal role. And a lower-income country is maybe the primary beneficiary. Historically, international cooperation has been dominated by vertical models. And while these have financed important gains, they've also entrenched structural asymmetries and undermined local agency. Horizontal and triangular cooperation have broadened the geography of collaboration and are really important, but they fail to dismantle this donor-recipient logic, this kind of 20th century worldview in which some countries have and others need. So circular cooperation breaks through that and starts from a different premise. All countries need, we're all developing, all countries have something to contribute, and all can therefore engage in prioritisation and decision making. And those of you that follow the global public investment movement will recognise that these are the very same principles guiding GPI. The global south has insights the world needs, whether it be community health, conflict resolution, education, care systems, social protection, sustainable development. They've survived and adapted in ways that the whole world should be learning from. So as we rethink international development cooperation, let's no longer define it by geography or GDP, but by mutual vulnerability and mutual responsibility. Not about helping others, but helping each other, working together across borders and cultures to face the challenges we have in the 21st century. And to be clear, this is not a denial of inequality or an indulgence of false equivalence. Extreme poverty still affects billions and demands urgent action, and countries with greater resources must still contribute far more finance into the system, as well as ideas and technology. But those contributions must be accompanied today by humility, curiosity, and a willingness to learn, to benefit from mutual cooperation as we finally dismantle the last great myth of development, that some people contribute and others receive. We all know that the international cooperation system is under unprecedented strain. Trust in multilateral institutions and systems is low, especially among the young. Traditional aid models are losing legitimacy, and the scale of our interlocking global crises is exposing their inadequacy. So this is a crisis moment, but as I said in my previous video, it's also this huge opportunity to rebuild and redefine what we mean by global cooperation. The SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, marked a conceptual shift toward universality and shared responsibility. We're all in this together, but institutional structures have lagged behind. Most global institutions continue to allocate resources and define roles, crucially, based on outdated income categories, reinforcing hierarchies and limiting the potential for truly effective cooperation. Because the more solutions that are thrown into the pot, the more effective we're going to be at solving our problems. The world is changing, and so is our understanding of cooperation. It's time for the final stage in the grand, gradual evolution of modern global cooperation, for knowledge and experience to flow in all directions, for the dignity and contributions of all people to be recognised, for circular cooperation.